Why wait for Black Friday? Blink Friday starts now with up to 65% off Blink Smart Security. Check on your pets all season long with new Blink Mini 2K Plus plug-in cameras. See your gifts arrive in head-to-toe view with Blink Video Doorbell. Ready to use right out of the box. Just unwrap Blink and go. Pet setters to busy families. Blink Friday deals have your holidays covered. Tap the banner to save now.
And now, your daily dose of debate, breaking news, and uncensored views. This is the Michael Medved Show.
And another great day in this greatest nation on God's green earth. It is a great day. It is a holiday. It is a holiday in many public schools, banks, post offices, because it is Veterans Day. It used to be known as Armistice Day. This was the day where in 1918, they first sat down to have a truce, and then later had the major Versailles Conference that had a full treaty to end World War I, which was, according to President Wilson at the time, supposed to be the war to end wars. It didn't work out that way. And to look at the United States and our participation in World War I, where we came into the war in April of 1917. It had already been fought to devastating impact throughout the world, really, but predominantly in Europe. And the Veterans Day events will be held across the nation to honor the millions of men and women who have served in the U.S. Armed Forces. We are now counting down the dwindling number of people who personally served in World War II, as my father did, as my father-in-law did. He was a major in the Army during World War II. But that generation is barely a few survivors. I don't think there's anyone who actually served in World War I who we could still say is surviving, because to have served in World War I, you would have had to have been born in 1900 or afterward, because here we are, it's in 2025, and very few people who are 125 years old or more. Events are going to be held around the country, and that should be remembered. One of the things that they did at my grandchildren's school, public school, is they had young people who had relatives who had worn the uniform, who had served in the military, bring in photographs, so they were connected more to that generation who participated in combat in behalf of our country. And the kids were shocked. I mean, shocked to see photographs of their great-grandparents having served in the war and worn uniform, because that's not part of their immediate consciousness. Meanwhile, speaking of immediate consciousness, following the Senate's 60-40 vote on a deal to reopen the government, to end this idiotic, stupid, pointless government shutdown, the House members are now returning to Washington after more than 50 days for many of them in their districts to send the compromise bill over to President Donald Trump's desk, where he is pledged to sign it, with key corners of the GOP conference signaling their support. It's expected to pass as early as tomorrow. The House Speaker, Mike Johnson, said he would not match his Senate counterpart's promise of a December vote on extending enhanced health care credits, telling reporters, "I do not guarantee the outcome of legislation or dates or deadlines or anything. I have to build consensus among my members." It is extremely unlikely that the Democrats will go back into what is a ridiculous position and to threaten another government shutdown in January or December if they don't extend the additional funding for health care credits, the enhanced health care credits, which really were a product, by the way, of the pandemic. And the idea that they would be carried on now, there's controversy. And the idea that what we need is a second government shutdown on this issue is appalling. Meanwhile, one thing is resolved in the favor of Democrats and actually in the favor of transparency and sanity. Representative-elect Adalita Grijalva. Remember her? She was elected in Arizona and elected overwhelmingly. She happens to be a Democrat. She is now traveling to the Capitol finally to hopefully get sworn in. The Arizona Democrat is set to provide the final signature needed, that is, if everybody else holds firm, on a petition to force a vote on releasing the Jeffrey Epstein files. So we may get a major flood of information, probably more than anybody really wants, about Jeffrey Epstein coming up, assuming that the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, follows through and swears her into office for an office for which he was elected literally months ago. Meanwhile, speaking about late and things going not according to schedule, the airlines are required to cut 6% of their flights at 40 major airports starting today, this following an order from the Federal Aviation Administration. This is expected to trigger more widespread delays and cancellations at some of the nation's busiest airports. The reductions are due to air traffic controller shortages and FAA mandated cuts implemented during this late and lamented government shutdown to slow air traffic amid limited staffing. Massive delays have impacted thousands, hundreds of thousands of travelers in recent days, with some of the most severe disruptions occurring in Chicago, New York, and New Jersey. Maybe President Trump should send the National Guard into those airports to get things working well. That's a joke. I am not actually suggesting that. I don't want to be quoted as that's making that suggestion. On Monday, arrivals in Chicago were delayed an average of 5 hours. You know what that can mean to you if you're traveling for business or you're traveling for a family occasion, with the family occasion of Thanksgiving coming up, to be delayed 5 hours late, how that can shake up your life or your business or whatever. On Monday, arrivals in Chicago were delayed an average of 5 hours, and that was with just a 4% service reduction. Aviation experts say the situation could get worse, with airlines required to cut 8% of their flights by Thursday, 10% by Friday. This is not good. Meanwhile, The Hill is reporting that President Trump has asked the Supreme Court to toss a jury's finding. Now, does this have to do with protecting his tariff policy? No. Does it have to do with the dubious legality of hitting all those so-called drug boats that have been attacked by the U.S. military? No, it has nothing to do with that. What does it have to do with? It has the jury's finding that he was liable for sexually abusing and defaming writer E. Jean Carroll in the dressing room of a New York department store. This would mark the first time that the legal saga over Carroll's allegations against Trump have reached the High Court. Coming up, we are going to be speaking to Matt Lewis, who has written an important piece about the MAGA Civil War. A question he asks about that Civil War is not why is it happening, but why now? Why didn't it happen before? We'll get to that question and much more coming up next. And on this Veterans Day, I'm very proud to announce that we have a gigantic, biggest ever sale going on at the Medved History Store. It's an American history sale, including special prices on everything, including the complete Veterans Day collection, which includes material about World War I, World War II, the Civil War, and a range of American conflicts. Everything is 50% off, sometimes more. For instance, we have a hardcover edition, autographed by me, of God's Hand on America. And this is a hardcover edition. It's $14.99. Which is half of the price that people bought it to make it a national bestseller when it came out a couple of years ago. God's Hand on America, the case for divine providence in American history. That is, again, available for $14.99. There's also a program on World War I, which is one of our most popular programs. It's called World War I, The Great War, or America's Greatest Mistake. The audio version of this offering, this program, $14.99. $14.99 on Theodore Roosevelt, the All-American Boy. Connecting the Continent, the Golden Spike, and its miraculous moment, which was part of the legacy of Abraham Lincoln, actually. Why? Well, go listen to the show. That's $14.99. The Mystery of the Lost Colony. No, Jamestown wasn't the first settlement. The first settlement was in Roanoke, and not Roanoke, Virginia, but Roanoke off of North Carolina. Fascinating story, still unsolved mystery. The miracle of the Constitution, what it was that allowed them to complete their work and have this work that has lasted now for almost 250 years. And then divine guidance, the key to America's greatness, the case for divine providence as a force in U.S. history, the truth about John F. Kennedy and his assassination. That is available $14.99 for all of these titles. And then World War I, The Great War, or America's Greatest Mistake. I present both sides. America, as I think most people know on this Veterans Day, the war in Europe raged. It was referred to as the Great War, with millions of people killed before America ever got involved. We were strictly neutral, and that was the policy on which President Wilson got reelected. And then literally just a couple of weeks after his second inauguration, he was asking for a declaration of war. Why'd that happen? That's available for $14.99. The history of third parties in America. Why have third parties never worked? And no, the Republican Party was not a third party. Why not? Well, it's part of this show. The first Thanksgiving, very appropriate for the season. Pilgrims, Puritans, and the founding of America. And then a very important and relevant and timely show, which is America a Christian nation? And then all of this is available for $14.99 each. Go to Medved History Store. Go to medvedhistorystore.com, where you can find this posted at our regular website at michaelmedved.com. And hope you take advantage of our complete Veterans Day sale. Okay. Meanwhile, there is more about war and peace. The United Kingdom, that would be Great Britain, is no longer sharing intelligence with the U.S. about suspected drug trafficking vessels in the Caribbean. Why not? Because the Brits do not want to be complicit in any U.S. military strikes, and they believe, as most legal scholars do, that those attacks on unproven drug boats are illegal. So say sources familiar with the matter to CNN. The British decision marks a significant break from its closest ally and intelligence sharing partner, and underscores the growing skepticism about the legality of the U.S. military's campaign around Latin America, with a growing possibility of some kind of war, full war with Venezuela, which is one of the most formidable militaries in South America. Meanwhile, there's also a fight that erupted at a mostly peaceful protest of a Turning Point USA event at UC Berkeley. Now, the whole idea of the Turning Point USA, of course, is to change minds of young people on college campuses in particular. And the late Charlie Kirk had some good success with that. And they were holding a Turning Point USA event at UC Berkeley. And so naturally, that drew protests. And this is 2 months after conservative political activist Charlie Kirk was killed on a college campus in Utah. His organization, Turning Point USA, held an event at UC Berkeley. It was the final tour stop of what is called the American Comeback Tour. That had already been scheduled while Charlie Kirk was still alive. But outside this time, some Berkeley students were protesting the event. I think it's important to be out here, and I'm proud to see the culture is still alive, said Andrew Similachan. Similachan is a junior, but it's his first year at UC Berkeley, and one of his first on-campus protests. Gee, he's just a newcomer to Berkeley. To come up, we are going to be talking about a different kind of conflict, the MAGA Civil War. The question about the MAGA Civil War is not why is it happening, but why is it happening now? Why didn't it happen earlier? We'll be talking about that with Matt Lewis, columnist and opinion leader and best-selling author. Coming up on The Medved Show. There has been a great deal of conversation about what people are calling the MAGA Civil War. And what exactly does that mean, and where does it come from? Why is it happening? And best of all, why now? These are questions that are addressed brilliantly by Matt Lewis in a piece that originally appeared in the LA Times, and it has been circulating all over. The title that he uses is "Some Trumpists Object to MAGA's White Power Element. Why now?" And the question being, why are they avoiding the real cause of this civil war? And why did everything wait until this moment of conflict? Matt Lewis is the author of Filthy Rich Politicians and Too Dumb to Fail, a best-selling author. He is also has served as a senior columnist for the Daily Beast and a senior contributor to the Daily Caller, and worked for a columnist for AOL's Politics Daily, and before that as a blogger for Town Hall. Matt Lewis, the MAGA Civil War has elevated, it seems to me, to the center of national attention uh, two people who happen to be Tucker Carlson, who has his own reputation, and Nick Fuentes. What is it that allowed them to become such dominant figures in this culture war?
Well, Michael, great to be here. I think ultimately it's the internet. To be honest with you, I mean, there was a time when if you wanted to be relevant as a conservative, you had to, like, I don't know, get hired at National Review or something, or become a conservative columnist for a mainstream outlet. And, so there were gatekeepers, and I certainly think there were some bad things about that. I'm sorry, excuse me. I think there were some good things about that, but of course, some bad things about that as well. They could possibly keep out people like me. Like I didn't make it actually into being a commentator until the blogosphere happened, and I was able to start blogging at townhall.com and human events and places like that. But there also used to be the possibility that adults could exercise some sort of vetting and keep out people who were crazy or radical or fringy, or could actually hurt the reputation of the conservative movement, and co-opt the movement. And so I think since the internet came along, and obviously now it's become just impossible for any adult to try to police the right. And unfortunately, people like Nick Fuentes, who is a white nationalist and a Holocaust denier, have millions and millions of fans and listeners. And you can try to deplatform them, you can try to take them off Twitter, and it doesn't seem to actually matter. And so it's a big conversation, but fundamentally, that's probably where this starts.
Okay, let me ask you, because you've looked at this deeply. There's a mystery to me. There's several mysteries, but one of them is that, okay, Nick Fuentes is an anti-Semite. He is a Holocaust denier. He is a racist, and he's positive toward Hitler. But why is he positive towards Stalin? And again, he was on in that famous, now notorious interview with Tucker Carlson that has given rise to all of this discussion. Tucker Carlson nods and is in agreement in terms of celebrating Stalin's birthday. What's the deal? What do they like about Stalin?
Well, it's so interesting, right? I mean, there are things that once upon a time would have gotten you drummed out of conservative orthodoxy if you dared to support tariffs back in, 10 years ago. And now, remember, Steve Bannon said he was, into Lenin, that Lenin was sort of his hero, and he's sees himself as a revolutionary. In the case of Fuentes, I don't think it's Stalin's ideology. I think it's actually the fact, and this is what I heard, it's that that Nick Fuentes, being somewhat diminutive, admired Stalin, who was something like 5'6", and not an intellectual in the traditional sense, who rose to become incredibly powerful, and of course was ruthless, which I think is part of it as well.
Yeah, he murdered millions of people. I mean, we're talking about one of the worst human beings in the history of the world, and obviously, when you're dealing with Hitler, that's the case. So the point that you make is that this chain of loathsomeness that was highlighted in Charlottesville with people marching around a a Jewish synagogue saying, holding torches and chanting, "The Jews will not replace us." This has been going on for a while. So your big question is, why is it only now that it's become news?
Yeah, I mean, so first of all, I try not to become too petty and sort of get revenge with my column, but I really do believe that people like you and me, Michael, saw this coming more, a dozen years ago, and we were warning about this. And even though Donald Trump has been a friend of Israel, it's really undeniable that his candidacy and presidency have unleashed and even served as a magnet for people like the Proud Boys and people like Nick Fuentes. Um, and so you and I knew this was happening a long time ago, and I've known about Fuentes. Remember, Donald Trump had dinner with Nick Fuentes and Kanye West, another anti-Semite, back in 2022, 3 years ago. So the fact that this all of a sudden became controversial because Tucker Carlson, quote unquote, platformed him on his show struck me as like, A, good news. I'm happy that suddenly people care about this, but B, curious, like why all of a sudden? And I mean, I have theories as to why, but I still think it's a little bit of a mystery because, again, in my opinion, anyone who's paying attention could have seen this coming.
You write in your column, so if these more mainstream Trumpers are horrified now, it's probably because they helped create monsters. And those monsters are now coming to devour their creators, as monsters always do. I'd like to get into, as we continue a conversation, what devouring the MAGA movement really amounts to. And the point that you make was also a powerful point in the column. Right-wing anti-Semitism has metastasized, yes, it is a cancer, on Trump's watch despite his support for Israel. And what about the Democrats now with Zoran Mamdani? Are they also people who are going to be having their own civil war over that? And if not, why not? We will get to that and to more with Matt Lewis, who is the author of this important column, Some Trumpists Object to MAGA's White Power Element. Why now? And will those Trumpists who stand up against some of these extremely damaging and, in fact, embarrassing ideas like that Hitler and Stalin are worthy of admiration for anything? We will get to that and why it's emerged so recently with this timing. Talking with Matt Lewis. More coming up on the Medved Show. And on the Michael Medved Show, more with Matt Lewis. Matt is the author of Filthy Rich Politicians and Too Dumb to Fail, and other works, including a column that we're discussing that appeared in the Los Angeles Times. Now, of course, the Los Angeles Times is not noted to be a conservative journal, but there are now conservative journals, very much including the Wall Street Journal and National Review, that have all been absorbed and embarrassed by what people call the MAGA Civil War. And now with people touching on at least the edge of anti-Semitism and sometimes going over, people on the left, like Ilhan Omar or Rashida Tlaib, but members of Congress, but also like the new mayor of New York City, the mayor-elect Zoran Mamdani. Do the Democrats have the prospect of their own civil war over these issues?
I don't think, yes, the Democrats do have problems, and there are going to be things they fight over. I actually don't think that this is going to be one of them, because I think this battle has been lost in the Democratic Party. I think that that the Democratic Party, I don't want to say anti-Semitic, although certainly there are some people in the Democratic Party that are anti-Semitic, but as it pertains to the Palestinian Gaza question versus Israel, I think they've now have a side, and it's the Palestinian side. And so, even though I believe that that Donald Trump has been a friend of Israel and has done some very good things as it pertains to Israel, I think that recent years have probably been bad in terms of Israel, because I think now the Democratic Party is pretty much taking sides with the Palestinians, and now I think the Republican Party is very much divided, and so I hope that it's not short-term gain and a long-term step backward.
Amen to that. A complicated question, which is that once upon a time, Republicans were very worried about QAnon because there was this whole surging belief. At one point, I think they measured that about 15% of Americans thought that QAnon was true, that basically the world was being gobbled up by a cabal of cannibalistic pedophiles. And that's, of course, connected. We're going to have a whole bath, I'm sure, coming up of release of Jeffrey Epstein material, et cetera, et cetera. What happened to that QAnon nonsense? Whereas you remember they had literally thousands of people who assembled in Dallas because they believed that John Kennedy was alive, that John Kennedy Jr. was alive and was coming back and was going to be a running mate for Trump. What happened to QAnon?
Man, that's a great question. I wish I knew. I mean, you're right. This was very prominent and dangerous, of course, and it seems to have subsided. I don't want to say the spell is broken. I mean, maybe we've just traded bad things for bad things. It seems like the Nick Fuentes anti-Semitism movement is catching on now, and maybe the fever broke a little bit as it pertains to the conspiracy theories of the QAnon.
Well, that also had anti-Semitic elements. I mean,
yeah, for sure. I mean, the conspiracy theories always have to have somebody to blame for their victimhood. But no, it's a great question, and I actually don't know the answer to that.
Okay, and then it's also puzzling because Marjorie Taylor Greene was actually affiliated with some of those QAnon beliefs, and then recently she seems to be. What happened with her? She seems to be sounding normal and sensible in some of her comments recently.
The best speculation I've heard is that she wanted to run for the U.S. Senate in Georgia, and Trump basically told her no. Presumably because she wouldn't be electable statewide, and this would be John Ossoff, the incumbent senator there, is perceived as being very vulnerable, and so Trump basically said no, and that seems to have liberated her, and so she is kind of attacking Trump, I would say, from the populist right. She was attacking him about not releasing the Epstein files. Now, when it comes to the Obamacare subsidies, where of course, as these subsidies expire, a lot of folks, including yours truly, our healthcare costs are going to go up dramatically. She's been attacking him from sort of a populist MAGA angle. And so I think she might actually be now positioning herself to run for president in 2028. As crazy as that sounds, she's had a really good year, believe it or not. And you're right, she's someone who in the past talked about these Jewish space lasers, and now somehow is like the conscience of conservatism.
Oh, no. Don't say that.
Well, the bar is very low these days.
Okay, when you talk about the bar being very low these days, there's some of this with J.D. Vance having been associated with the charges of pet gobbling Haitian immigrants in Springfield, Ohio. What does the future hold with J.D. Vance in particular seeming to be very enthusiastic in supporting, quote, diversity in the Republican Party in the sense of welcoming people who are way over out of the mainstream, people like Tucker Carlson.
Yes, this is very interesting because it kind of comes full circle back to the other segment. So, J.D. Vance, just a fascinating rise. He was obviously the best-selling author of Hillbilly Elegy. He was a never Trumper who actually did compare Trump to Hitler, believe it or not. And he manages to become vice president. He spreads this lie about they're eating the dogs, they're eating the cats.
I think he originated the story.
Or his office
did.
Allegedly, they received a tip that it was happening, and they're the ones who popularized it and pushed it into the narrative. But so he is, in my opinion, a bad actor, and he's right now would be perceived as the heir apparent to Trump if Trump ever actually leaves. But he has a problem, and the problem is that he's married to an Indian American woman, and believe it or not, Nick Fuentes is making a big deal out of it. Fuentes is saying something, I'm paraphrasing here, but it's to the effect of J.D. Vance is going to be the savior of white Christianity. This guy whose son is named Vivek, who's married to a woman who's not a Christian, he's going to be our great savior. And Fuentes, who has this group, they're called Groypers of acolytes and kind of disciples throughout the country, are pretty much vowing to do whatever it takes to stop J.D. Vance from becoming the next Republican nominee. So, it's you live by the sword, you die by the sword, I guess.
It is all extraordinary, and you make the case so well in your column that is posted at our website at michaelmedved.com. And you write toward the end, so by all means, conservatives, condemn Tucker Carlson, denounce Nick Fuentes, and scold Heritage for failing to police the right and only punching left. But as long as you avert your eyes from Trumpism itself, your righteous outrage is just theater, the political equivalent of aggressively mopping the floor while the pipes keep bursting. Let's hope that the pipes burst less, and that our politics recovers from the shutdown. You, I assume, believe the shutdown was a tremendous waste of time and energy for all concerned.
No, I think it was actually good for Democrats, and I think it helped them win the elections. And frankly, I don't understand why they stopped the shutdown. They were winning. The polls showed that for the first time, Donald Trump and Republicans were actually being blamed for something, and that's in the national polls and the election exit polls. So,
is it possible that some of the Democrats, including those 8 senators who voted to end the shutdown, actually cared about the country?
I'm sure they did, and it's understandable. Even if it's just missed flights, it's not great. And Tim Kaine represents Virginia, a lot of government workers in the Commonwealth there.
And Matt Lewis, appreciate your perspective and your contributions. And again, his column, most recent column that we're talking about, you can find at michaelmedved.com. And it gives an important perspective for some of the challenges facing this greatest nation on God's green earth.